Coming in at number 5, we've got Papa Kisslinger from Dracula 3D. Man, what was Argento thinking while making this movie? It's just so off-putting in so many ways. The use of color and music that made Argento the legend he is today are nowhere to be found. The lighting is messed up, the actors are half awake at best, and of course there's his daughter Asia Argento being put into many, how do I say it, compromising positions. Did you need some fast cash? Did you owe Rutger Hauer a starring role? Did you forget who you were for a second? Okay, let me set up this kill for you. Dracula 3D is a retelling of the classic tale of Dracula, the posh and mysterious man living in the castle above a poor town, wielding power and influence to get what he wants. Most of the time this means blood and mistresses, but hey, that just describes most rich people. Throughout the movie, Dracula makes all sorts of stealthy kills, usually by transforming into classic vampire-adjacent creatures. This could mean he turns into a bat, or a wolf, or an owl, or any number of other classic beings. A lot of these kills end up being rendered in some particularly cheap-looking CGI. It's not great, but we'll accept it. Eventually, Van Helsing gets involved and Dracula begins to make some bolder moves. He doesn't want to be sold out by the town, nor does he want to get killed by a vampire hunter. This eventually results in Dracula needing to kill the father of a young woman he has recently bit. How is he gonna do this? I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say you will never guess. Does he turn into a bat, a cat, a wolf, a gigantic dark monster with razor-sharp teeth? If you answered any of the above, you'd be wrong. Instead, Dracula turns into a gigantic praying mantis, scuttles up the stairs, and then tears into this poor man's chest with a huge green claw. This is the kind of movie moment that stays with you long after the credits roll. Like, what? A praying mantis after everything we've seen so far. It takes a true cinematic mastermind to concoct something so far out there, so needlessly unexpected that anyone watching can't help but let their jaw hit the floor. Dracula praying mantis kills drunk man with claw to chest. What a sentence. Coming in at number 4, we've got Shelley from Castle Freak 2020. Now, the original Castle Freak had its fair share of weird deaths too, but none come anywhere close to this ridiculous, nausea-inducing death. See, there is a big twist in this remake that seems to be there for 2 reasons. So if you're super invested in seeing this 2020 remake with no spoilers, I'd advise skipping this entry. Cool. So in the original Castle Freak, the freak was a man with the mind of a child. The son of a baroness whose husband abandoned her, was locked away at an early age, and served as her whipping boy up until her death. Unaccustomed to the world outside his dungeon, he does his best to reach out to the new tenants before overreaching and becoming violent. The new Castle Freak's freak is a woman. Why the change? Well, the first reason is sort of a plot point, as our blind protagonist finds out that she and the freak are long-lost twins, born of the same mother, destined for the same fate. Right, so neat. They can perform a vague ritual that doesn't really show up until the last second now. But the second reason that the freak is a woman is for this kill specifically, Shelley. Just to gross everyone out. Alright, so Shelley is a homewrecker. It's implied from the start that she's trying to steal poor Rebecca's boyfriend, and it's also implied that she's the reason homie got distracted and crashed the car, which is the thing that caused Rebecca's blindness. So when Shelley shows up at the castle, you know she's gonna try to get a piece. Like, that's her entire character arc. She wants to boink this dude, so then she gets him drunk, and then she boinks the dude. So while they're getting down and dirty in the castle, Shelley decides she wants to get extra freaky. Tying his legs and arms to the bed and covering his eyes with some undergarments, she proceeds to start living her dream. But it soon turns into a nightmare though, as the castle freak silently slinks up behind and kills Shelley. If you think you know where this is going, you're probably right. The freak This kill is weird thanks to the little attention it gets in the long run. Immediately following the events of Halloween, Halloween 2 kicks off with a Michael Myers manhunt. Everyone is on high alert as the murderous maniac is on the loose after tormenting Laurie Strode. Anyone in a mask could be the killer, so the cops are understandably pretty jumpy. Loomis and his cop buddy see a group of revelers on the sidewalk and assume that Myers could be among them. After a short chase down the street, Loomis draws his gun on a kid in a mask similar to Myers, which causes him to stop in the middle of the street. All of a sudden, a different cop car comes speeding down the street, hits the kid, and then runs into a van, causing a massive fiery explosion. The cop behind the wheel claims the kid came out of nowhere, which, you know, it might be true, but also you're doing 60 down a residential street on Halloween. So they just exploded a kid for kinda sorta looking like Michael Myers. Then when more deaths are discovered, they confirm that they did indeed explode someone that wasn't Michael Myers. and they just kind of forget about it. It's never really brought up again. You hear about it a little bit in passing, but other than that, Ben Tramer died spectacularly for pretty much no reason, and nobody's really bothered by it. It's always felt pretty weird, right? Coming in at number 2, we've got Kowalski from Leprechaun 4 in space. Any space-based slasher could take the cake on this one, but for making me say the term space gonorrhea out loud has to go to the Leprechaun. Early on in the movie, the Leprechaun is accosted by some space marines. He's a tough customer who somehow got his tiny hands on a lightsaber, so the marines have quite a bit of trouble taking him down. In the end, they do kill him with a grenade. Kowalski, being a bit of an overconfident lunatic, decides that the best course of action after killing a Leprechaun in space is to pee on the body. Bad call, Kowalski. See, the Leprechaun has plenty of tricks up his sleeve, and spirit transfer via urine stream is one of them. So as Kowalski is relieving himself, the Leprechaun's spirit travels up that waterfall and manifests upon Kowalski's member as space gonorrhea. But that's not all. Later on, while Kowalski is getting it on, the Leprechaun explodes out from his member, killing him. So yeah. To summarize, a dead leprechaun sent his spirit up a pee stream in order to infect a space marine's junk and then later use it to violently resurrect himself by exploding out during a sexual act and then flying away. And if that's not on your list of weirdest horror movie deaths, I don't know what to tell you. And finally at number 1, we've got Janet from the Greasy Strangler. This entire movie is just one big pile of weird. Every character is weird. Every plot point is weird. Every musical cue is weird. And the ending, so weird. And of course there are plenty of weird deaths, all enacted by the titular Greasy Strangler. You know, the old man who covers himself in cooking grease every night in order to partake in anonymous violent crime. What'd you expect? Spoilers from here on out, so make sure you're ready if you stick around for this. So after a movie jam-packed with strange, life-ending acts, we get one that might not be as visually strange as some of the others, but is somehow much weirder. See, the two main characters in The Greasy Strangler are Big Ronnie and Big Braden, father and son. Ronnie is the original Greasy Strangler, but spends most of the movie denying it. Braden falls in love with a young woman named Janet, which makes Ronnie jealous. So in between outings as the Greasy Strangler, Ronnie seduces Janet away from Braden. This of course causes a rift between father and son. Worse yet, Ronnie and Janet then proceed to taunt Braden with overt sexual acts. You would think that Braden would be done, both with Janet and his father, but in the end, this isn't the case. Instead, he proposes to Janet and she accepts. This is unacceptable to Ronnie, who evicts Braden, gets greased up, and kidnaps Janet. Braden finds the two of them in an empty movie theater, with Ronnie strangling Janet. Instead of saving her though, Braden takes over and strangles her until her eyeballs pop out, and then, as father and son, they eat the recently ejected eyeballs. What? Coming in at number 5, we've got the Grim Reaper from Spookies. Or is it These Spookies? I can never remember. Spookies is a movie with weird in its DNA. It was originally intended to be titled Twisted Souls, but production difficulties and creative differences between the writer-directors and their producers caused a rift between both parties. A lot of the footage that was already shot was then handed off to another director who was to finish the movie on his terms. So there are two different movies here smashed together in a strange smorgasbord of cheesy horror. Half of it is a group of pals investigating a haunted house, and the other half is a weird mix of monsters and magic. It's hard to follow while watching, but if you know the tale behind its production, you can probably understand why. There are some great moments here with some lovely practical effects, but some of what happens goes way off the deep end. And for a movie that's all weird all the time, one would think that nothing could really catch them off guard. Once you're in the rhythm of the strange and unexpected, it's all gravy, but no. There is one death here that defies all logic and has been burned into my retinas permanently, and it has nothing to do with the fart noise creating swamp men in the basement. No, it's weirder than the man with the ventriloquist dummy and a t-shirt of his own face being lured into a giant spider's nest and literally being sucked dry. It's weirder than the cat man stalking the night and killing a little boy on his birthday. It's weirder than the pulsing, shaking grave giving birth to a reanimated warlock. Okay, it's so far removed from any sense of groundedness, it almost doesn't feel real. You could probably convince me that I imagined it, but then I would go back and watch the movie and see it again. It's real. It's an actual moment. In this feature film, comprising of two totally separate films, there's a monster that chases folks around a mansion, Scooby-Doo style. The monster looks like a statuesque Grim Reaper and carries a scythe. It moves slowly, but it'll pack quite a punch if it catches you. So when a small group of survivors notice that it's hot on their tails, they climb out onto the roof, which is a bad call because there's nowhere to go from there, right? But it actually turns out alright for them. The Reaper follows them atop the building and eventually shambles right up to the edge, falling off. It topples down and hits the ground with force. But does it get back up and jump to the top for a kill? Does it disintegrate into dark powder? Does it transform into a different, more agile monster? None of the above. It explodes. It explodes in an enormous dynamite-fueled pyre, and then they replay the explosion from a couple different angles, and not a single character bats an eye. They head back inside to go about trying to find their friends once again. Nobody seems fazed by the enormous fireball they just witnessed, nor the fact that it was caused by a monster that had no fire or explosion-based abilities falling down a couple stories, and then it's never mentioned again. Phenomenal stuff. Coming in at number 4, we've got Mid-Murder Bath Time from Slaughter High. In a movie that showcases a bunch of high schoolers almost murdering their dorky classmate for no real reason, you would think that whatever happens to them would be unexpected and violent. You know, poor Marty, he just wanted to experience the joys of intimacy. And also science. He wanted to do science. I suppose his chemistry skills do come into play with a lot of the kills in this movie, but there's one that really stands out to me as extra odd. Slaughter High isn't a movie necessarily meant to be taken very seriously. You've got all these old high school pals showing up to a reunion together and not thinking it's at all strange that they're the only ones who made it. They then find out that all the doors are locked, and instead of realizing something is amiss and heading home, they find an alternate route in anyways. And even more out of the ordinary, there's a single classroom full of snacks and drinks and everyone's lockers, like specifically their lockers from high school. At that point, it's time to hightail it out of there, right? But no, they're gonna drink the beverages of questionable origin, pick out on the snacks that have been left out for God knows how long, and see what happens. After one friend has their stomach melted from the inside out by a bad can of beer, everyone goes into panic mode. Of course, someone's trying to kill us. So what do? Do they leave? Do they stick together and face the killer? No, they split up and run around doing random for a little while. And worst of all, Shirley decides it's a fantastic idea to take a bath. Like, we get it, you know, you're covered in other people's insides. Being covered in that isn't fun, but a bath? Right now, in your old abandoned high school with a murderer running amok. Also, why is there a bathtub there in the first place? Most high schools have showers, sure, but like a tub that you can lie down in? Putting all that aside for the kill itself, Shirley hops in and begins to relax. This doesn't last long though, as Marty somehow rigged the faucet to spew acid. So Shirley gets a nice acid bath and is rendered down to skeleton form. So let that be a lesson to you. Don't take a bath at your empty high school after being lured in by a killer maniac. Coming in at number 3, we've got the stomach stabbing from Deep Murder. If you haven't seen this movie, you know, I don't blame you. It looks bad, but go watch it, okay? You'll either love it and we can be best friends, or you'll hate it and I'll be forced to think of you as a joyless pseudo-intellectual. Sorry, there's no in between. It's one or the other. So there's plenty of weird kills in this Skinamax themed horror comedy. It takes place in a universe where softcore adult films are the reality and everyone lives their lives based on whatever half-baked stereotype they've been assigned. Once folks start dying in very provocative ways, everyone realizes that something is wrong. And after a few of these deaths, the surviving characters start acting really strangely. And just like in Slaughter High, a mid-murder bathing session is in order. This time there's no laying down in a tub though. But the stereotypical jock and nerd both head upstairs to take a quick shower. Once in there, the killer is lured in as well, and all three get lost in the copious amounts of steam produced by the hot water. In fact, the shower seems to get unreasonably large during this sequence, allowing everyone to kind of wander around aimlessly in the fog without actually running into each other. There's also some Austin Powers level masking of private bits until there isn't. Great work, team. But after all of this slow motion stumbling through the steamy shower, the jock just gets straight up stabbed in the gut. Nobody sees the killer though, so the nerd has to do his best to save his hunky pal. This results in a beautiful heart-to-heart as the two friends hash it out one last time. All while the jock bleeds out and also gets pee everywhere because apparently the killer also sliced his bladder. If it sounds like a really weird scene, that's because it is. Like, I'm really at a loss as to how to describe this effectively and still make you want to watch the movie. Coming in at number 2, we've got the Soul Pizza from Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Freddy is well known for his creative over-the-top kills and witty one-liners as he slices and dices his way through many victims. But as the series went on, some of the deaths got pretty ridiculous. There are some that played a character's specific fears while being visually fascinating and weird, you know, like the Roach Trap or the Roach Hotel. And then there are some that are just plain goofy. This kill falls under the latter designation. Freddy rounds up all sorts of hapless victims and somehow bakes their souls into a pizza. Not their bodies or pieces of them, but their entire personhood is now a topping on this pizza. This apparently requires taking them and making them into little head-shaped meatballs and then baking them into the ooey gooey cheese and then serving them up as they scream. I can just imagine the writers working on this, like, hey, we need a couple more kills to be popular with the kids. What do you think? Well, what if we made a pizza with some people on it and then Freddy eats the pizza? Perfect. And coming in at number 1, we've got Garbage Day from Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. It was either this or the kid realizing someone was getting eaten in Troll 2, and really I think this line delivery is just a little bit better. It's more demented, it's more confident, there's more gun, and I love it. I'm sure plenty of folks have seen this already, but it is worth rewatching every time it's brought up. It just comes out of absolutely nowhere and adds truly nothing to the plot of the movie, but boy is it entertaining.
Garbage Day!
Oh yeah, these are weird. Kills like this could make any movie worth watching. So, what'd you think of the list? Can you think of any weirder deaths?
Number 5, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. First of all, that title is way too long. That's like 13 syllables. Cut that shit in half. I figured it was only fair to start this list off with one of my favorites of all time. We take you now to Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. We have a boxer, Julius, played by Vincent Craig Dupree, and Jason Voorhees, played by Kane Hodder. And at this point in the film, we find them on top of a building. It looks like a fight scene in a Batman movie. It's a gorgeous shot. And then in a final attempt of survival, Julius, the professional boxer, takes a stand against the masked killer Jason, who is, immortal. So I counted, and Julius, the professional boxer, gotta keep noting that, Julius punches Jason 56 times. 56 times. There's no music either. It's just the same sound effect used for every single punch. Like, this poor actor had to swing that hard that many times on set. Also, this dude probably had to film this scene like 10 times. As I said, the camera angles are really nice, which means they used more than one take, which means it had different shots for each take. This day of shooting, I'm sure everybody was so pumped on set except for Vincent Craig Dupree. He's probably in his trailer warming up like, 56, are you sure? What about 46? So what happens after Julius punches somebody as hard as he can 56 times? Nothing. Jason is straight up unfazed. So Julius at this point is pretty gassed out, or at least Vincent Craig Dupree, the actor, was. Between breaths, Julius looks at Jason and says, "Take your best shot, motherfucker." And then Jason grabs him by the collar and he takes his best shot. He punches his head off of his body, like literally clean off. Like, he punches his head off of his neck and body. Even when it falls off the roof, you see it, it's like a shot of it falling, and it's like a clean cut too. Like, it's very clearly a mannequin head. But it wasn't like ripped off or pulled off, It's not like one of those hangnails where you're like, 3, 2, 1, and you pull it and it's like attached to like your shoulder and you're like, Jesus! It's just clean, just nothing. Bam, laser cut. You'll see. Cue the mannequin head. God, it makes me laugh. Number 4, Final Destination 2. Now, a lot of these deaths I'm sure are meant to be pretty out there and wacky, and dare I say funny, but some are too far-fetched and ridiculous to ignore. A lot of them are pretty scary too. I'll start by saying that. The tanning part in Final Destination 3 actually kind of terrified me a lot growing up. Like, I can't use tanning beds. I should, but I can't. For this entry, we go to Final Destination 2, released in 2003, directed by David R. Ellis. This is a disturbing movie for the most part, but we have this one character named Evan, and right off the bat, he's like the cool guy, He wins the lottery, he's got a sick car, he likes driving with his arm out his window, whatever, blasts music. He loves eating takeout. This guy is the king, right? So he's hanging out in his apartment, still in the same apartment for some reason. After winning so much money, he still lives in this place. So right after shopping for a new Mac and other stuff, he kicks his door open, comes in, drops off all his new goods, starts whipping up some food. Rather, he warms up some takeout. So while he wasn't looking, a magnet fell into his noodles. Magnet plus microwave equals Oops! So, while the magnet noodles are stuck cooking away, he gets his hand stuck in the sink. He was trying to get like a fancy new ring out of the garbage disposal. It was a whole thing. Place starts lighting on fire slowly. His hand is stuck. It's not looking great. It's actually a really anxious scene. This would have been a great way to go out. Bam. His character died by fire in the premonition, so this would have been a cool little nod if he died in a similar way. He finally breaks free from the sink, boom, and then he busts out the windows. After climbing down the ladder on the side of the building, he lands safely on the ground, gives a cool little smirk, and then he slips on some spaghetti. Spaghetti that he had tossed out earlier. The old spaghetti slip. Gotcha. And the ladder falls down and goes through his face/eye/head. Now, they had us in the first half, I'm not gonna lie. Everything that was happening was pretty grounded. But as soon as the whole, hey, this is what happens when you throw food away, kids, don't litter, you can't help but laugh. I mean, this is hilarious. Number 3, Saw 2. Okay, I gotta add at least one of these in a list about ridiculous deaths. So every time I watch Saw, I, amongst other viewers, trying to think about how I would get out of that trap. It's kind of the whole point in watching. The movie makes you want to squirm and move and shout at the TV. It's normal, it's all great. But there's one in particular though, just straight up annoyed me. And I'm pretty sure it annoyed you as well. We find Addison after she's broken off from their main group, which is just a place you want to be in a house of horrors, literally. She comes across a glass box hanging from the ceiling. Inside the glass box is the antidote. Nice. There are 2 armholes, 1 antidote. Got it? Sure you do. You're a smart human being. I mean, fair. At this time, she was suffering from the nerve gas, but I don't care. Ridiculous is ridiculous. Math is math. So she waltzes in, literally, puts her hand in, and tries to grab it. Important to note that these are holes that are clearly rigged with blades. So once you put your hand in, it's not easy to get out. Kind of like when you put your finger through a straw drink hole or whatever. For a split second, you're always like you feel like it's gonna be stuck forever. So the needle turns out was glued to the bottom of the glass. So when she tried pulling it, it just pulled the needle apart and the contents spilled out. End of story, you lost. Let's work on getting that other hand out now, huh? What do you say? Nope, she quickly goes, ah, damn it. Puts her other hand in the other hole. I remember seeing this in theaters. Everybody in the theater was just like, nah, I hate this chick so much. The antidote is spilled. You already lost. You can look up and see it spilled. Oh my god, these Saw movies are pretty good considering what they are, but this trap, it just gets me angry. What do you guys think? Was it the state of mind that she was in, or was she just not the brightest in all murder houses? Let's talk about it down below, because I'm pissed. Number 2, Hellraiser 3. This one is amazing. Okay, if you've seen Hellraiser 3, you already know what I'm about to say, probably. Released in 1992 and directed by Anthony Hickox, this is the 3rd installment of the classic Hellraiser series. See, I told you I'm trying to get a little bit from everything, you know? Keep it fair. So, there's a scene right after Pinhead returns to Earth, where the dude just unleashes chaos on everybody in this boiler room party. Everyone's getting whacked in the scene. There's dudes getting impaled, chains wrapping around people's necks. Oh, and then this girl's drink just rises out of her cup and like stabs her in the face. Check it out. Also, this isn't my main point, but at the same time in this scene, everybody's getting messed up in the background. And then it cuts to this girl just chilling, holding her drink, not phased at all at this moment until her drink comes out. And then she's like, oh, something's not right. Damn. Like all of a sudden, like this is what happens? Like get out of here. She's not even out of breath. No chance. Anywho, back to the ridiculous death in this scene. We cut to a guy also just straight up chilling. And as fate would have it, he just happens to be surrounded by CDs. CDs are the things that us old folks would use back in the day to listen to music. Yeah, it was awesome. LimeWire, great program. Nothing but smooth sailing there. And the CDs that were hanging out just start flying into this dude's head, like Haunted Mansion style. This dude dies by CDs, compact discs. More like high compact discs, am I right? Sorry, yeah. Just one at a time, bam, bam, bam. He even catches one in his mouth at some point. So the speed of the flying discs change, I guess. I don't know, sure. It's pretty funny. It actually reminds me of that scene from The Grinch where he's tossing the mail in like different slots.
Jury duty, jury duty, jury duty. blackmail, pink slip, chain letter, eviction notice, jury duty.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've thrown a CD at some point in my life. I grew up with an older brother, so I've definitely thrown a CD in my life. We love tossing stuff at each other. I mean, when we're getting mad, it happens. We love tossing stuff at each other in a fit of rage, but I mean, the CD going into your skull? I never tossed it that hard, although I may have tried numerous times. Sorry, Kyle. And finally, number 1, Child's Play. I've talked about Chucky before on this channel numerous times. I just don't get it. How can this thing possibly be this scary? It's a doll. He's the size of a doll. He's the size of a child. Just run away, walk over, step over him, just walk away, do anything, just leave the room. I mean, sure, he's strong and invincible or whatever, but look at his legs. I mean, what are those? I could walk away from this guy, literally. Look at these legs. Good luck, Chucky. Okay, so Child's Play, directed by Lars Klevberg, was a reboot of the classic. It wasn't that bad, to be honest. Aubrey Plaza was great. Mark Hamill voiced Chucky too, so if you missed it, give it a shot. It's actually pretty decent. So we have Shaner, and he's a not so nice guy, played by David Lewis. And he's a guy who doesn't like Christmas.
Doesn't like Christmas. Take a look at his mailbox, sweetie. Not a single Christmas card, in or out.
Bam! 2 Grinch mailroom references in one video. Who is this guy? So the scene starts off with Shane climbing a ladder to take down some Christmas lights. And he's not in the best mood while he does it either. He does that dad mumble where he complains but like only to himself at a low volume, you know? This is what I'm talking about. So he starts taking the Christmas lights down at the top of this ladder and he even says out loud, "Oh, I guess I should have unplugged the lights before doing this." Yeah, man, that or maybe don't climb a ladder and do this at night when literally nobody can see or hear you. Shaner, classic. Shane, so silly. So the ladder shakes and he's frightened. He looks down and he sees nothing. And instead of getting off the ladder to take a closer look, he just goes, "Those raccoons," and then goes about his business. Sure. Then the ladder fully falls and he lands and breaks his leg. His kids are rocking some fat headphones so they don't hear a thing. It's actually super funny too. They're just blasting Cardi B while Shane screams for his life while there's a bone sticking out of his legs. Unreal. And as if that wasn't bad enough, in comes Chucky. Well, kind of. I mean, you see his little hand turn on the snowblower. And then the snowblower starts pulling in the Christmas lights and shredding those up. Yet the lights still remained functional. Okay. I feel like if the lights flickered on and off while Chucky was coming at him, it may have been a bit scarier, I don't know, or less ridiculous, one of the two. So Chucky hops on Shane's chest while he's holding back this now very close snowblower, and he says, "It's tickle time," and then stab, 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 stab. And while his head got messed up from the machine, sure, Shane was a dick, and this death was kind of a good part in the movie, dare I say. But this whole scenario, I mean, come on, there's just no way. I mean, part of his hair shot out of the snowblower and landed on a gnome's head. Super funny, also super impractical.